Welcome to episode 249 of the Irresistible You podcast. Today, we are talking about the ghost fat phenomenon. That is when your body changes through something like weight loss, but your brain doesn't. Ghost fat phenomenon is when your body changes and your brain doesn't. So what we're going to talk about is you're on this weight loss journey and you're losing weight and your clothes are getting too big and you're having to go down in size and you're clearly having lots of physical body changes, but your brain is still trapped in the fat girl identity. So we're going to break it down. We're going to talk all about it. This is such a big part of the weight loss journey and what a lot of, obviously like traditional diets and diet culture, they don't talk about this. You have just been sold on the glory of the before and after story, the glory of before I was overweight, I was miserable, I didn't like myself, and now my after is I am thin, I have lost all the weight, my life is perfect, I've achieved everything I want to achieve, and here we go. That is the story that we have been just indoctrinated into from the early times. Like I remember just even in the 90s, like as a kid, always seeing the before and after infomercials, like my friends and I would go roller skating and we would get home at midnight and we would, stay up late giggling, watching shows and dumb stuff on TV. There was no internet. And these infomercials would come on and they were just so stupid and cheesy. But then also as a chubby kid, teenager, you're like, oh, well, I want that too. I want that after story that they are all having. I've gained and lost weight more times than I would like to admit, right, in my lifetime. And so I have gone through this multiple times on not recognizing myself. And, excuse me. When I think about right now in the journey that I've been on, for the past 5 years, I've lost over 70 pounds and I had a baby and I lived through a pandemic while I was pregnant with that baby, my son. And I went through my daughter getting diagnosed with a chronic condition, type 1 diabetes. Just been through a lot of major life changes in the last 5 years, including the weight loss. And, it's definitely something that I've been through before and I'm dealing with it right now. And it's why it was top of mind. And I wanted to bring it up because I know other people are struggling with ghost fat as well. Now, clinically, medically, I'm not a clinician. I'm not a psychiatrist or anything like that. But you will hear the term body dysmorphia, which is an actual diagnosable condition. Could this fall into that bucket? Yeah, it's a little bit of body dysmorphia, but I'm not here to diagnose. I'm just talking about the ghost fat, right? When you've lost weight, you've lost weight, but you don't recognize yourself, or you think you're still overweight, or you think you're still fat. And I think this gets really difficult too when you technically are still overweight, like you're not at your goal weight, you're really deep into the weight loss journey. And so because you don't identify as someone who is traditionally thin or skinny or at a healthy weight range, it's hard to accept sometimes that you do look smaller and that you aren't necessarily in the same bucket that you were in before. And, I brought up my situation recently because, the past 5 years, I went through a pregnancy, had a baby, was managing a baby with a 4-year-old at the time. Shortly thereafter, boom, she gets diagnosed with diabetes. I'm busy, I'm working, I'm trying to juggle life. I'm trying to just manage all the things I have going on in my life. And, for someone like myself who was always dressed up, always in heels, always dressed cute to go to work and stuff like that and to go out, there was no more going out, right? Like there was this pandemic, there was these, my priority is my children, as it should be. But I say that to say I've lived a lot of life in athleisure. And I love a good athleisure outfit. It's kind of my happy place. I love to be dressed comfortably so I can run around with my kids. We can go do active things. We can get outdoors. I can walk the dog. I can take care of everybody. And I still have the elements of me, right? I have my nails done with all my crystals and I have my big hoop earrings. If you're watching on YouTube, you see those up now. I have the elements, my makeup, the things that make me feel beautiful and glam and irresistible. But I've really been out here in these streets running around in athleisure. And while that's cool and all, it's like you also don't realize how small you are getting when you're always wearing, like athleisure type clothing, sweatshirts, biker shorts, the whole nine. And it's not that recently I've had a massive loss in weight. I've kind of just been, actually since Christmas, I've been riding steady in the 190s. I had a little bit of a gain, about 10 pounds, but I'm back in the 190s. And while I am not anywhere near the goal weight, my initial goal weight right now is about 170. So I'm less than 30 pounds out from where I want to be. And I say where I think I want to be because I don't know, you guys. I don't know. The smallest that I have ever been since high school is probably around the time I got married, when I went on a big weight loss journey, and I got down to 180. And I haven't been under that number, like I said, since high school. So when I look back on those pictures, I think I look really good. I think I look healthy. I still look curvy. I still look, good to me. And I don't know if 170 is going to be the stopping point. I don't know what that's even going to be like. So I gave myself that 170 because it's 100 pounds, right? It's 100 pounds from my highest weight. When I went in to deliver Javi, I was way over 270. That's kind of like our wait and see, no pun intended. But you know what? I'm going to write that down because I think that might become like how we have a whole glossary of terms? I think wait and see is like, what's your first goal, right? Your first goal weight. So, I'm in the 190s. I'm not small. I am not skinny. I am not where I want to be physically, but there's something so for me and my body type, there is something drastic that happens, and you might experience this too, and your numbers are probably different than mine, but there's something that happens from 215 to 190 something. It's only like a 15-pound mark, and you don't think that's a lot, especially when you're coming down from 270 pounds, but there's something that happens physically from 215-ish to 190 something. And I really start to notice. I start to notice my face a lot more. I start to notice my legs look smaller. Just that my midsection doesn't feel as hard. I don't even know how to explain this, but I feel like if y'all listen, if you know, you know. But that hard, visceral fat in your belly region, it feels less aggressive. It feels less just angry, I guess is the word I'm looking for. And we recently, 2 weekends ago now, we went to Medieval Times for the dinner show with the knights and the horses and all that. I am such a dork. I am such a nerd. I love going to Medieval Times, y'all. This was our third time with the kids, second time with Frank. A couple years ago, I went for spring break with the kids and then last year over the summer, Frank took me and the kids for my birthday, and then I guess I'm cool now, y'all, because I got this email from Medieval Times, from the Baltimore Castle, which is the closest one to me. It's about 3 hours from my house. And they said, we're having this influencer event for kids where they're going to get knighted. They get to do this junior knight training. So they invited us for no cost. We went up for the day, did a road trip, went up that morning, got there in the afternoon. It was so much fun. I've never been to Medieval Times and not had a good time, but it was such a good time. It was such a light in our life recently where we've been going through some crazy adulting things. And so it was such a nice way to like spend time with the whole family. The kids had a blast. I mean, I'm like losing my voice yelling at the night. It's like, I get into it. And if you're going to go to something like that and you're going to have a stick up your ass, like you're not in the right, like go to Applebee's, go to the local whatever restaurant, because this is supposed to be loud. Like I tell my kids, this is the one time you can be really loud at dinner. You can be messy. You can use your hands and it's okay. But I'm saying all this to tell you that when we went to it, I had this moment, and this actually happened at Walmart. So we stopped at Walmart. We get to Maryland. We're right there by the medieval times, and we had to go to Walmart to get some items. And I go in the restroom, and I walk past the mirrors, and I looked in the mirror as I'm walking, which I'm going to get into like not looking in mirrors in a second and how we do that too. And for a second, I thought, that's not you. That's not you, Amy. Like that. These must be like those deception mirrors. This must be a deception mirror where it makes you look a little bit smaller, because this is not what you look like. Because I thought, I don't look that small, right? And I'm like, well, I guess I do. Like, anyway, we left Walmart. We get to medieval times and we're taking pictures and stuff. And I look at a couple of the pictures and I thought, that's not me. Am I really, do I look like that? Like my face looks really thin and just my body, like my legs look smaller. Like it just didn't like register for me. And then later that night, Frank was like, babe, like you're really looking small, like slim. And I'm like, okay, if my husband's saying it, I'm seeing it. You're not in, like, we need to accept we do look better. We do look smaller, right? We are losing the weight and it's very noticeable. But it's this ghost fat where you're like, no, that's not me, right? Like you just don't, you use every excuse about why that couldn't possibly be you, but you're feeling your body, you're feeling the rolls are smaller, everything's smaller, right? Everything's fitting bigger on you. And this is what happens. So this is what I mean by ghost fat. So there's a lot of feelings that come with weight loss. And that's what my channel and my podcast really talks about, is the stuff that no one else talks about, or, mainstream diet culture doesn't bring this up. You're just sold, this is the before and after story. But there are so many changes, not just in the physical sense, but in the emotional, mental sense as well. And so when we start to lose weight, there's this double-edged sword. I know I'm going with the medieval times pun here. But like there's this double-edged sword of compliments, right? Where you are not fully connected and recognizing that this is the new you. This is what you look like now, right? You haven't fully embraced that because you can't believe that this is you when you got so used to seeing yourself at a bigger weight, right? Especially if you've been overweight for a long time, there's this double-edged sword because the compliments might feel disconnected from you. They might feel uncomfortable from people. They might feel welcome. Like hey, if y'all want to recognize that I've lost weight and you ever want to say something, girl, trust and believe, I will never be offended by that. We are not going to be offended by that. I know some people don't like it. I endorse that, okay? I endorse that message. But it might feel uncomfortable when people are noticing, when people are saying it, and you might be skeptical of people because we're used to the food pushers, the diet sabotagers, right? And so sometimes because of the history that we've had with people, and my husband does not fit into this category at all, but like we think when people say something, they're blowing smoke up our ass, right? They're trying to embarrass us. They're trying to be like, oh, I know she's on it. Like, this is what our brain does. It's like, oh yeah, I know she's on a diet. I'm going to say that she looks a lot better to like make her feel a certain type of way, but I don't really mean it. Like, that's what we think people are sitting around doing, right? And I know if my husband notices something, like, he is definitely not the type of person who's going to blow smoke and just say stuff to say stuff. Like he's not doing that. So the compliments can feel like a double-edged sword because we want people to notice. We want our hard work to be acknowledged, right? But we also can get uncomfortable and awkward about people noticing, right? So I want you to just absorb that for a minute, right? Explore the discomfort of not being as invisible as you once were, and how this attention can feel overwhelming. And a lot of times it's stemming back to the fact that we don't feel connected to us yet. We are in this disconnect. I feel like you're in a cloud sometimes. Like you're in your past fat cloud looking down on your new smaller self, and there's a disconnection, right? And there is some truth to the invisibility factor, right? The invisibility factor is when we are larger, people don't treat us like humans. People don't acknowledge our presence. It's like the bigger we are, the more invisible we can feel. And it sucks. It's vain. It's shallow. But it's the reality is that as you lose weight, people notice you more. They are nicer to you. They hold doors open for you. They look at you. They treat you with more respect. And I think there's two levels to that. I think one is that is just the shallow, fat phobic society that we live in. And I also think that a lot of times it's our aura and our vibe that we're giving when we're bigger, that we don't feel good about ourselves, or we have low self-esteem or low confidence, and we're giving that vibe. And as we start to lose weight, and now we're giving self-confidence, right? I think it's two levels. I don't think it's one or the other. I think there's definitely two layers to that topic. So compliments, right? We can't fully accept them until we accept ourselves. And that's why we always are thanks button. We're thanks button. Thanks, but I still got 30 pounds to lose. Thanks, but, right? And then also, when you've been overweight for so long, it has become part of your personality. It has become your identity. And so as the weight sheds and it goes away, that shield, oh my God, with the medieval, y'all, I swear to you, I did not plan this. I am not trying to do the puns, but I'm going to go with it. So when we remove our, shield of weight, our extra weight shield, we no longer have that invisible wall that is our excuse as to why we're not pursuing our goals, our dreams, our, having a voice and all of those things, right? So when that is gone, we don't have that as an excuse. So now what's the excuse, right? And even though being overweight was uncomfortable, and it was uncomfortable enough that you decided to do something about it, I want you to think about something. We wouldn't have stayed overweight for as long as we did if it wasn't serving us in some kind of way. And when I say serving us, I don't mean it had to be serving you in a positive way, because it clearly wasn't, or you wouldn't have changed. But that weight was serving you in some way, even if it was false comfort, false protection. Think about the wet blanket that we always talk about, right? It was your wet blanket that was keeping you uncomfortably comfortable. And when that wet blanket comes off, you're going to feel uncomfortable because you're not used to it yet. You're not used to what it feels like to not have all of that weight literally weighing you down in more ways than one, right? So if the weight was serving you in some way, and now that it's gone, you have to reinvent yourself. You have to figure out your new identity. And this is why in my program, my course, and my private podcast, one of the things I have people do at the very beginning of the program is to define who you want to be. Who do you want to become? What is the identity that you want to have for yourself? People go into weight loss and they just I want to lose weight. I want to be skinny, because all you think is skinny equals happy, skinny equals success. If I just do that, everything else in my life will fall into place. And losing weight is not going to cure your child's illness. Losing weight is not going to get you a job. Losing weight is not going to pay off all your debt, right? Losing weight can give you the confidence to make these big changes in your life, but only when you are approaching it from, I'm losing weight and I'm also working on the emotional weight. And that's what my course and my program solves. So if that's something you want to explore a little bit more, I encourage you to head over to irresistibleicing.com/course. Get in there, get the private podcast, get the course. It's going to change your life. It's transformational. All right, so the disappearing excuses. So you don't have that shield. The excuses are gone. And again, like, physical changes are not going to automatically improve our body image, because body image is not physical, right? Body image is not a physical piece of us. Body image is a mental perception of our bodies. So if you're going into weight loss from a place of hate, from a place of not loving yourself, from a place of denial, then as you go down the scale, you're not going to like what you see. And I think there's a difference, right? There's a difference between I still don't like what I see and I can't believe what I see. Two different things, right? Two different things. And so there's just this work that we have to do mentally to be able to meet ourselves in these new weights, because you're going to run through many, many different versions of yourself as you lose weight. Especially you got 100 plus pounds, you are going to go through many iterations of yourself as the weight starts to come off. And just understand how normal this is. Like, you are not alone. You are not the only one. Like, this is such a normal part of the weight loss process. It's just that you've never been taught, or you've never had validation that what you're feeling is completely normal and part of what you're going through. So what do we do when we have the disconnect? So as we're going down the scale, there's the emotional weight that we have to work on. Like I said, my program addresses that, but also things that you can do that are very simple. Take pictures. I know you don't want to see yourself, right? You don't want to see yourself big, but I am telling you, if you are committed to this journey, when you get down to a certain size, or you've lost a good milestone of weight, you are going to be so grateful that you have those pictures to compare, because you don't realize what you're doing. You don't realize how much you're changing until you look at the pictures and you're like, damn. Especially, like I said, when you're still not at your goal and you're still not considered like quote unquote thin, you really need to see these before and during pictures, because the evidence is right in front of you. It's right there. You're seeing it for yourself. And the more you see yourself in photographs, the more comfortable you get with yourself and your body. Because if you think about every single day, we don't interact with ourselves where we're sitting there, looking at ourselves and understanding what we look like and seeing different angles. We only see photos. When we take the photos, or when we're tagged in the photos, the more you can get comfortable taking pictures. And I'm just talking about by yourself, y'all. Like, you don't need to do this with other people. In your home, alone, take the selfies, put the phone on a tripod, take some video of yourself from the front, the side, the back, all those things. So you have something to compare, to see the difference, and to get comfortable with what you look like. Because it's jarring when you see yourself. I told you my experience recently where I was like, I still know that I have so much further to go. So sometimes I don't feel like I've had a big change. And then I see something and I'm like, oh, right. Like, okay, yeah, I get it now. But going back to denial for a second, I think one of the other problems is that when we are at our highest weight and our most vulnerable, miserable mental state, we get pictures, whether we take them, someone takes them, we get the dreaded tagged photo that we didn't want to approve, right? And we see ourselves. I know I went through this a lot where you actually don't think you were that big. So there's also like ghost fat, body dysmorphia at our largest weight, where in your mind, maybe you are still where you thought you were 50 pounds ago because you refuse to believe that you have gained so much weight and that you look like that. So you see a picture and you are just in denial. Like there is no possible way that's what I look like, right? Or have you experienced this? It's like you see a you so I wear contacts. I am blind as a bat. Like if I don't have contacts on, there's no way I could drive my car home. I can't function. That's how it's just bad. But I think of it sometimes where I could see a picture and it's almost like my contacts are off and I have this blurred vision and I'm looking at the picture, but it's almost like I refuse to see it. We've all been there. And so when you've lived in denial about the fact that you've gained so much weight in the first place and that you're living in this body and you haven't fully acknowledged her and come to terms with this is where I am. I am 270 pounds and this is what I look like. When you haven't been able to acknowledge that, of course, you're going to have a hard time ever acknowledging or accepting your new body 50, 100 pounds down. It's just really going to be hard to connect. So we have to start at the beginning of our journey. And if you're already, in your journey or you're at your goal weight, it's not too late. But for those of you that are starting out and you're thinking to yourself, I'm going to just deal with this later. I'm going to deal with the body image, the fact that I don't love my life. I'm going to deal with my personality quirks that I don't like. I'm going to deal with all that when I'm skinny because then I can do it and it will just like magically go away. I love you, but you could not be more wrong about that. It has to start the moment you decide you're done. And when you do that, you're going to stop the cycle of the before and after hatred, right? Because I don't think there's anything wrong with the before and after photo at all. But what I do think is wrong is that when we vilify our before version of ourselves and we call her disgusting and fat and gross and all these horrible things, what I want you to remember about your before, something about this, so you can say this to yourself, something about being this heavy served me in this phase of my life. This version of me got me through what I was going through. This version of me allowed me to survive my traumas. This version of me served me in some way, and I am ready to shed the layers and get the true, authentic, most irresistible version of myself. I want to find her. You can't vilify your before because that is just self-hatred and that is not going to clear up because you got the weight off, right? Because as the weight comes off, there's also parts about you that you won't recognize. You're going to have loose skin. A lot of times you're going to look older than you are if, lose a lot of fat and muscle. You're going to, especially in your face, you're going to age more. You're going to, losing weight in your 40s is a mind fuck because before when I would lose weight, pre-40s, I just lost the weight and there was like a little bit of loose skin, but not a ton. And now it's not loose skin from just losing weight. It's also your mid-40s, your skin texture is losing the collagen naturally anyway. Your skin texture, your hair texture, things are shifting and changing because aging is a mindfuck in and of itself. Keep that in mind that there's this, every layer that comes off, we've got to get acquainted with that version of ourselves and get comfortable. And it's a process. This is not a listen to this podcast and go out and change your life and now everything's better. It is every single day you're working, you are putting in the work, you are making decisions, and you are having conversations with yourself. and you're just working on this and working through this. And so you have to find things that make you feel really good physically, because the weight loss in and of itself isn't going to be enough. It's just not. So I think we're going to go ahead and start to wrap up this episode. I want to just remind you that if this is striking a nerve, if this is something you want to dive deeper into, I really encourage you to sign up and enroll for the Irresistible You online course and VIP podcast. It is completely self-study. You can do it at your own pace. You can, there's a whole series of videos and workbooks and worksheets to work through these thoughts and these different exercises that I have within the program. But also, everything is now available in audio format as a podcast. So literally, just as you're listening to this, as a podcast in your podcast player, my course is set up the exact same way. So if you needed a sign, this is your sign. Go to irresistibleicing.com/course and go check that out. And if you love the podcast, please go to your podcast player and leave a rating and review. Mostly Apple Podcast is the main playground for the reviews. So when you do that, it helps my podcast get shown and seen by more people, and I would greatly appreciate that. I am going to wrap everything up here, guys. Let's stay connected over on Instagram at Irresistible Icing. I will catch you in the next one. Until then, stay irresistible. Bye, guys.